Good morning. I'm Larry Fedoruk. Welcome to Home Improvement with Frank Cohn. The numbers are 416-872-1010, 877-518-5151. Star Talk. If you want to text a question to 71010, you can, but it's best to have you on the phone and have a conversation about your problem and your question for Home Improvement and Frank Cohn.
Thank you very much. And we're going to have a busy show here, so I'm going to get right to this. Again, for those of you who want the names and numbers of the people I use or recommend, don't call me at the office. I don't return those calls. Go to my website at newstalk1010.com. Go over to weekend programming, to the Home Improvement Show, and you'll see everybody listed there according to categories. And as always, if there's a complaint about any of these people, don't call the radio station to complain. Call me, and I'll do my best to address your concerns. I also want to touch very briefly on phone etiquette, which I think everybody has problems with. People leave messages on my machine, and sometimes there's the obvious. Some of the accents are really thick, so it's hard to understand them. But I get some people who talk so quickly and mumble through the whole thing that I've got to go through these messages sometimes a dozen times. And I had this one guy from the Better Business Bureau who was upset with me because I wasn't returning his calls. And I couldn't call him back to say, I can't understand, A, what you're saying, and B, when you leave your phone number, you're not leaving it first like I request. You're leaving it at the very end, and you're garbling it. So I even called the Better Business Bureau. They hadn't even heard of this guy. So I couldn't even get his number.
I have a tip for when I leave a message. I say my number, which I will repeat again at the end of this message, is 416-872-1010. And then I repeat it at the end. But I tell them I'm going to repeat the number. If you're trying to write it down, it's just a piece of kindness.
Exactly. Yes. So again, when you're leaving a message, and sometimes if contractors aren't calling you back or something like this and you wonder why, maybe again it has to do with your message, just talk a little slower and make sure that you enunciate things so that we can write these things down and call you back. We still have the Bernie Current Safe contest on, which will be drawn in about another 6 months, where someone has the opportunity to win 6 months of free electricity. And to do that, you want to visit ismyhomesafe.ca, and you'll complete a 15-second questionnaire, and you can talk to them about their no-fee in-home assessment, which is, I think, a great, great idea, because I know all the homes I've worked on, I've yet to find one that wasn't almost an electrical nightmare, including my own house. So again, ismyhomesafe.ca, and you complete a quick questionnaire, and you could win maybe free electricity for 6 months. Right. Okay, now without further ado, I want to get right to my good buddy George from JAGG Enterprises. Welcome back, George.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good. And we've got his daughter Jackie here as well.
Hello.
Welcome, Jackie.
Hello.
And I dragged Jackie in here. She didn't want to come in, but sort of if you're listening last week where we had Sandra Baldwin from A Lifetime Contractors who promoting obviously women in the industry, and George's company is a good example of someone who's also doing that. Because George, not only does your wife run the company, but your daughter Jackie goes with you on a lot of the jobs.
That's right. Adelina runs the office and runs everything, basically runs me as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's the brains behind the operation. She's the one that coordinates and controls everything. So, and then Jackie also is a student, but is during the summer and during the year works in the office and also works on the sites with us as well.
Yeah. How do you like working on the sites, Jackie?
It's fun. I get to explore something new, I guess.
Do the guys bug you, being a woman?
No, well, we have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Well, you were on one of my jobs, I guess the last one, and give you credit. I mean, when the guys were sitting around, you were looking for stuff to do, and which is like good if Papa's watching behind you. Now, is this something you'd want to do full time, or is this something you're just basically doing for the summer?
For now, it's for the summer.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's good to be outside, though.
Yeah, it's fun. It's nice to get a tan.
Yeah, well, there's always that. And now, George, you were mentioning you've got another young lady that
right.
works with you as well?
Morgan, who is our administrator that works in the office, usually answering phones and controlling things there, helping out. She also comes out and helps out as well. So
right.
It gives them an opportunity to get their hands dirty, see what we go, what happens every day. And it actually gives them a different understanding of what we deal with, right? So it's, a lot easier when they're answering phone calls, they can actually answer them.
Right.
Based on experience, not just,
sure.
what they hear.
We need definitely more women in the industry. I know we need more people, period, but there's no reason why a lot of the women can't be good. I mean, I've seen electricians and painters and carpenters and plumbers and everything else, so why not waterproofing? And like Jackie says, it's a great way to get outside and get some fresh air.
Yep.
Good. Now, George, let's talk about, obviously, all the flood damage that's been going on. Now, you were telling me in terms of how busy you are and what people should sort of recognize when they're trying to get a hold of somebody right now.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Since the July 8th flood, there's been so many calls. a lot of the guys that are in this industry just don't know which way to turn anymore, whether it be restoration, waterproofing, plumbing. All of them have been running basically nonstop for almost 3 weeks trying to catch up. And it's beyond trying to catch up. So many houses were, I won't say destroyed, but had damage. Mm-hmm. Some of them are just minor. Other ones, 6 inches, 8 inches of water in their basement. It's been difficult to catch up. We can't. I'll be honest with you, we're trying. We're about 2 weeks behind just to even go and see a job.
Wow.
And we're about a month, 3 weeks to a month before we can actually get manpower there to do anything.
Right. So I guess the key is be patient. And I guess this is when people have to be really careful, because sometimes you'll just grab anybody because you're panicking. And what happens is you'll get a job that wasn't done properly. And the job you just did for me apparently had been done a few years prior. But obviously when we dug up, there was literally nothing there. I don't know what these poor people paid for.
Right.
But
it's the biggest mistake a person can do is try to hire I'm not talking bad about any general contractors or any other trade, but hiring someone saying, oh, yeah, I can do it. Well, what do you usually do? Well, I renovate bathrooms. And now you're going to hire this person to do waterproofing on your foundation? That's the biggest mistake someone can do. And it happens all the time. And then a year from now, they'll be calling me again.
Right. And I've seen the way you guys do things. You dug the hole, they washed the wall, they repaired the cracks that were in, they tarred it, they put the blue skin on it, then they put the membrane over top of that.
Or the wrap, rather.
Yeah, and even the wrap, in terms of there's a right way and a wrong way, you had the proper clips so that it's properly adhered, and you left the job site spotless.
That's right. We put a trim edge across the top. A lot of times we see repairs that people have done, and they leave the wrap just flapping away, right? We don't. We nail it all nice and neat. We put a trim edge on top so it's all clean.
Right. Do it the right way.
And a foot of gravel and proper water, a weeper and all that.
Yeah. Excellent.
If you have a question for George of JAGG Enterprises or for Frank Cohn, call Home Improvement now at 416-872-1010, 877-518-5151 is toll-free. Free call also to Star Talk. It is 8:15. Here's Newstalk 1010, Time Saver Traffic. Welcome back to the program with our guest, George Cabral of JAGG Enterprises, 416-872-1010, 877-518-5151, Star Talk. Text to 71010, Home Improvement with Frank Cohn.
Great. And there's a lot more George and I want to talk about here, but I know we've got Rita from Mississauga who's been waiting a bit, so why don't we quickly take her call?
Hey, Rita, you're on Home Improvement talking to Frank Cohn.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
I live in a townhouse, and my washer-dryer is in the basement towards the front of the house. The dryer vents out to the front of the house, and the dryer vent hose is at the bottom of the dryer. Now, when I get a really bad rainstorm that hits the front of the house, I get a small puddle of water in my dryer.
All right. Well, that's probably coming just right through the vent itself. Now, the vent you have, does it have like a covered hood, or does it have those three like little louvered flappers that go up and down?
It's the louvered flappers.
Yeah, you may want to get one that has the hood that goes over top. They can still have the flappers inside, but it's got more of a protection hood on it. Mm-hmm. That's probably going to be your best bet in terms of taking care of that. That shouldn't be that big a problem.
Well, the reason that I'm asking is because if the water comes in, so it goes down, and the vent or the hose there, it hooks underneath the drum of the dryer.
Yeah, well, all the dryers are vented at the very bottom, so obviously the water is going to go down and it's going to sit, and yes, you're probably going to get water in your dryer, so you may want to take the hose off and make sure all the water is cleaned out of there. But again, I think it's a simple fix.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah,
is the vent right up against the ground, or is it a foot or two off of the ground?
I'm sorry, I missed that.
The vent, where the vent comes outside of the house.
It's about a foot or two off the ground.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would try changing the vent, and I think that'll probably take care of that problem for you.
All right, Rita, thanks for the call.
Okay, George, I want to sort of talk again. We've been hearing in terms of the news, and I heard, I think it was on the station, about someone who was calling in saying that it was costing an average of about $3,200 per house to install a mainline backwater valve. And I always thought that was a little bit expensive. I guess it'll depend on the circumstances, but maybe you can explain what that is and what the procedures are for installing these, and maybe in a sort of a rough indication of price.
Yeah, a backwater valve, basically it's a valve that goes on your sewage line system, and what it does is when there's, like you hear it all the time, people have got sewage in their basement. What the valve does is basically if there is a backup, it closes and does not allow any sewage to come back into the house. Now, there's a lot of different ways of installing it, a lot of different situations you run into when you install these things. The way we like to handle is I like to have the area cameraed. So I get a camera guy, comes in and cameras the drain system, determines where the lines are and what we have to do to address it. And there are times that we go in camera and we're putting in a valve in one location and a foot or two away there's a broken pipe. So obviously when you're in there, you want to try to resolve everything at that point. As far as costs, they vary because every situation is different. Sometimes it's very clean cut where you can get in, you only have to dig a foot and a half, and you can install it. Sometimes you have to dig 3-4 feet. Sometimes there's other things in the way, other connections that you have to actually open a larger area to be able to do the work. So there's no basic price. Bottom end of it should be starting at around $2,000, $2,200 is a base price. And that's if everything is clear cut and there's nothing in the way. And it can be up to about $3,000 to $4,000 depending on the situation. And you also could be installing two, not just one.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say that because I think some of the older homes, if I'm not mistaken, had one line going out for the overflow wastewater and the general water, I guess, from eaves troughs and stuff. And then I think at some point they made you do two.
Yeah, a lot of the older houses in Toronto are on what they call a common line. So it's basically one line is handling the storm and the sanitary.
Right.
On newer houses, and depending where you are in the city, some houses have storm lines. So if we're going in to do it, we want to put two, one on the sanitary, one on the storm.
Right. Now, what about if you have both those on, what does that do, say, to the weeping tile? Because if that water isn't, say, backing up into the house, that water is then staying around the house and that weeping tile is filling up full of water.
Well, you should have, if anytime you have any situations, and now it's actually building code requirement to put in backwater valves when you're constructing a new house in Toronto.
Right.
As well as a sump pit. Sump pits are also required in Toronto as well.
Right.
JAGG Enterprises, our guest today on Home Improvement with Frank Cohn. We'll get to your calls next. And if you want to get in the queue for a question on the show, 416-872-1010, 877-518-5151, Star Talk. Home Improvement with Frank Cohn on Newstalk 1010. Welcome back, 416-872-1010, 877-518-5151, Star Talk. Frank Cohn and also George Cabral from JAGG Enterprises in the studio to take your calls and questions.
Yeah, now we've got Carol who's going to give an unsolicited testimonial, I think, for JAGG. At least hopefully it's a good one.
Good morning, Carol. You're on Home Improvement.
Good morning, Frank, George, Jackie.
Morning.
Nice to phone in. I have to say, I'm one of those people. I listen all the time, but I have never phoned in.
Well, we're honored.
But I have to say, I actually recently finished a job, and at the time when I had a bit of water in my basement, I thought, I don't even know where to begin. And I remembered listening to your show, and I went to the website, looked up who you recommended, phoned JAGG. And I guess my comment more is about what I learned from that process.
Okay.
Ask a lot of questions. Well, first of all, go to your website.
Yeah, that always helps.
But secondly, ask a lot of questions. And I think initially I was thinking about the questions around price. But what I found out in the process was asking the range of other questions. How will the work be finished off? What options do I have? I asked the question about whether or not I could get references and talk to people who had done, where they had done previous work.
That's really important.
And through all of that, I have to say, number one, I was so happy when we had the recent rain and I had the work done and everything just, worked so well. But just so impressed with the professionalism on every level, the quality of the crew, how my concerns were addressed, the communication throughout the process. Those are things that you need a professional for. And I think George's earlier advice about, going with professionals for serious work like this is, there's a payoff.
Great.
Anyhow, my thanks to you and certainly to JAGG for work that I was so very pleased with.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thanks.
Appreciate the call and truly unsolicited. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a lovely call.
And George, you owe me $100 for that job. One thing people realize, I don't make a penny off all these referrals. I mean, I have everybody on the webpage. My only proviso, if they're going on my website, is I don't want to get a phone call with somebody complaining. So if you've got to bend over backwards occasionally to take care of somebody, that's the price of getting free listing on my website. So it's I'm always very delighted when I hear very good results.
All right, and we want to get to some of the texts also. When we come back, text says, getting the basement done, what do you recommend for waterproofing from the inside? So we'll get to that topic as well, and more of your calls. Home Improvement with Frank Cohn, more in a moment. In the studio with Frank this morning is George Cabral of JAGG Enterprises. So we've talked a lot about waterproofing, basement leaks, that kind of thing, and we'll get to some of your calls on that as well. 416-872-1010, 877-518-5151, or Star Talk. Here's Greg in Brampton. Greg, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
So we've had some water leakage in the basement between the floor and the block wall.
Mm-hmm.
I understand you can repair from inside or outside.
Mm-hmm.
Which route do you think is the best route to go?
The best is outside if you have that option. Sometimes you don't have that option. It all depends on what's around your property. And when I say the outside is the best, because what you're doing is you're stopping any moisture from even coming in contact to the wall, as well as putting in new weeping systems and draining all the water away. Again, sometimes there's no option where you have to tackle it from inside, and if so, there's an interior drain system that we can do. But the answer is the outside is the best.
Yeah, I've always agreed with that, because if you're doing it from the inside, then you're letting the water come in the house, and you have what we call water management. You're managing the water, but then that water is still doing damage to your foundation. So, like George said, unless you don't have a choice, always from the outside.
All right. Robert in North York. Robert, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I called JAGG to have a quote done on some work, and they came out within a couple of days, but it took 2 weeks to get the quote. So I was concerned about having the work done now, because I wonder if it took 2 weeks to get the quote after 3 telephone calls to your office, how long will it take to get the work done?
Well, we're about 3 weeks to a month behind right now. We are dealing with an extreme amount of calls. When you're handling a couple hundred calls a week coming in, sometimes it's impossible to get to the answer right away for you. So,
we have a text here that talks about inside waterproofing as well. It said, getting the basement done, what do you recommend for waterproofing from the inside?
What I would recommend from the inside would be an interior drain system, where basically what we do is we'd have to strip the walls to bare wall, meaning all the insulation, studding, vapor barrier has to be removed. We would excavate and break the floor basically and put an interior drain system on it.
All right, and another text I want to get to quickly here. Sump pumps, what's the best way to run them when power goes out in a storm? And who would be able to do this kind of work? Well, power out in a storm.
Yeah.
And when you lose power, there's only 2 ways you can go. You can go to a battery backup system, which is basically a 12-volt marine battery system that would run a smaller pump. The other way, and the best way, and again, depending on the situation, would be a backup generator system. And that would be very expensive. But if you're dealing with, a multi-million-dollar house, that would be the best way to go, because you can pump a lot more water where the battery backups are minimal amount of water that they can control.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I know they do have, which I would like to talk about briefly, is a basement flooding subsidy program. I guess that's for the City of Toronto.
That's right.
Maybe you want to talk about that quickly.
Sure. The City of Toronto has a program. It's called the Basement Flooding Protection Subsidy Program. And what it is if you run into issue where you want to do some waterproofing, or if you've had some flooding, they have a reimbursement system. For example, if you put a backwater valve in, they will give you up to 80% of the cost, up to $1,250. Same thing with a sump pump system. They would give you up to $1,750. Combined, only $2,800. And also, if you could disconnect from the pipe severance and capping, so basically if you cap your down pipes and you disconnect your weeping system from the system, put it into a sump pump, there's another $400 that can be received.
Now, where can they find all this information, George?
This can all be found on the City of Toronto website, toronto.ca/water/sewer.
Good. And Jackie, you were saying earlier that because you do all the computer stuff, you're going to put it on JAGG's website?
Yeah, I'll get it on the website.
And when
too.
can we get that done?
This week.
Okay, good girl. All right, so we'll make sure it's on both sites so that you can find this, because, again, a lot of people in Toronto, obviously, if there's money to be had to help you repair this, is something you definitely need to know about.
Yeah, in our news this morning, Mississauga applying for disaster relief because of the July 8th flood, and I guess a lot of the problems they're having, which is, Interesting, the different cities or municipalities.
That's right.
Yeah.
As far as I know, only Toronto has this subsidy program. Right. I've had people ask me in Brampton and Mississauga, but I have not. To be honest, I haven't looked into it yet, but I have not heard anything about any Mississauga doing that.
Yeah. Before we take the next call, I just want to quickly address. I think it was the gentleman who called earlier, who called us with a question and then proceeded to come on air and complain about JAGG. To me, that really stinks. If you want to complain, then you tell the screener that's what you're calling for. But I don't like getting blindsided like that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a legitimate question, which is fine. I would take it anyway. But don't lie. Don't do that, because it's just not professional.
Bart is in Etobicoke.
Yeah.
Bart, go ahead.
Yes, you were talking earlier about the backwater valve installation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, we've had, actually, when we had the flood, the water, what it did is raised the floor in the pipe that comes into our basement, and it actually cracked the floor, and some of the earth came out. So I have to have that dug up anyway, so I figure if that's doing that, then they should be able to put the backwater valve in a lot simpler than having to they got to dig the floor up anyway to fix that drain.
That's right. The backwater valve it's a great thing to put in, especially with what's going on with all these freak floods or freak storms, if you will. You have to break the floor. We have to get in there, put in the backwater valve. There's also other things that should be done. You should put in a clean out as well, so that in case there's any problem, you can access it.
And as George was saying earlier, if you're not having JAGG do it, who's ever doing it, again, ask the right questions. And again, I think important, make sure they're cameraing your entire drain system inside the house and outside the house, because you go have it repaired just where it's coming in the house, and then there's a cracked tile somewhere else, then it's almost spending all this money for nothing.
It is.
Right.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's also very important that you get someone who is licensed to do this, or you will not get the reimbursements. You have to have a city license. You have to be licensed to do drains.
And it also has to be permitted, does it not? You were saying?
You have to take a permit. That's right. It has to take a permit. It has to be inspected. Mm-hmm. So a lot of waterproofers do not carry drain license. It's usually either a plumber that has to do this, or like us, where we do drains.
Right.
Good. More with JAGG Enterprises coming up, and with Frank Cohn. This is Home Improvement with Frank Cohn on Newstalk 1010 at 8:45. Newstalk 1010, Time Saver Traffic. Welcome back. Home Improvement with Frank Cohn and JAGG Enterprises here. George Cabral in studio. And because he's been waiting a while, let's go to Jay in Brampton. Jay, go ahead.
Hey, Frank. It's Jay.
Good morning.
I have a problem with a bit of a backup down in my main drain.
Okay.
I guess below the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a camera, and the cause of the backup is my side door entrance from the basement, the drain for that, taking in all the debris, all the dirt, all the sand, whatnot, and brings it down in the drain, and it's all clogging up.
Typical common problem, yeah.
What is my best solution for this? Should I do a drain into the weeping tile outside of the house, or stick to what I have and just keep having it flushed every once in a while?
Yeah, well, I'm going to let George answer that, and I've got my own possible answer depending upon what George says.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can put a backwater valve on your main line, which will help in case you have any backup. From the side door, the only real thing you can do is you can try to either grate it, get it so that the water isn't, or the debris and everything is not falling in. That should have a clean out on the inside. And again, depending on if it was done legally or not, if it was done with permits and done properly, there's a lot of different ways that drain can be run.
Yeah, I'm guessing by the sounds of it, it's potentially he wasn't done right, or they may have put too small piping. If they used like 1.5 inches in there, even 2 inch might have been too small. You may need to get someone, even like George, to come in, take a look at it. They can camera the drain, see what's wrong with it, and you may have to upsize the actual drain so the water is flowing away properly. And actually, one thing I want to mention quickly off the air, because somebody gave us a comment on the website here about the lady who called in with water coming in through the dryer vent.
Oh, the dryer, yeah.
Yeah, and one thing he mentioned that I didn't mention, which I thought of could potentially be the problem, is if you have the vent cap coming through the wall, sometimes if you haven't siliconed around that cap, then water can get in behind it and into the pipe. So that's something else you can look at doing, is just doing a little bit of caulking.
All right, and here's a text also says, "Hi Frank, Bernie can and does install generators to power sump pumps. Just an
good.
FYI. Great show. Listening online from Montreal, Quebec.
Oh, good stuff.
Thank you for that. Now here's Nick in Markham. Nick, go ahead.
Hello, guys. How you doing today?
Good, thanks.
Good.
I have a little problem with my cold room.
Right.
I bought the house about a year ago, and they have put pink insulation on the inside. Is that proper?
Pink
No.
insulation?
Yes.
Well, you can insulate it. It all depends. Pink styrofoam or insulation?
It's styrofoam, but I'm getting moisture inside the cold room.
You can do that. A lot of people, you got to remember a cold room is like a tomb. It's a concrete tomb, basically, that sweats. And I know, Frank, you've talked about this several times about insulating them and doing a lot of things. It all depends. People say they put more venting in it, but in essence, it's a concrete tomb. So it's going to be moldy. It's going to be damp. There's a lot of different ways that you can get it dried up. And I know, Frank, you've...
Yeah, well, again, besides getting someone like George in to make sure that the perimeter is properly waterproof, because that's one thing you want to look at first before you do anything else in that room, what we like to do is use the spray foam. Because if you're putting in basically pieces of styrofoam in there, if there's any air gaps between the foam or anything else, you're not getting a good seal. So I like to foam it. If you are doing that the other way, basically you want to make sure that you've probably got a vapor barrier covering it all, and then cover it with drywall. And you want to make sure the door going into that room is like an outside door. It has to be sealed 100%. So you're not getting any warm air getting in there. So it means in terms of doing proper weather stripping around the door as well.
Great show.
Are we done?
Here we go.
Oh, my God, this always goes by so fast. Anyways, George Cabral and Jackie, his daughter, thank you very much for coming on the air. And, George, you want to give out your website and a phone number maybe?
Yeah, you can reach us at 1-866-700-5244 or at jaggenterprises.ca.
Great. And we'll see everybody next week. Remember, let's keep our city clean. Don't throw your garbage out of your car window. Take it home. Bye-bye.